Most MSPs aren't natural salespeople. Typically, we are technicians who happen to be able to speak with non-technical people pretty well. That's a tough spot to be in when it comes to trying to close sales. So we're going to talk about a number of things on today's ramble, but mostly we're going to be talking about how to ask questions, how to be human in the moment, and not put on the engineer hat and try to solve problems before we even get a chance to get to know our prospects. We're going to cover 5 topics that will help move your sales efforts forward, especially when it comes to building rapport with your prospects, which is really the goal that we're aiming for, right? We really want to get to know them, get to understand who they are as a person, what their business is like, and how we can work together to build a solid working business relationship together more than just being the computer person. We don't want to be known as simply the computer person. We want to understand their business problems, because when we solve those business problems, we earn a new client. At my former MSP, I had an opportunity to step into a number of sales-related conversations, and one of the most memorable ones sticks with me is that I got into the meeting with the prospect, and it had already been warmed up a little bit by a couple of folks, but this was really kind of the get-to-know-you meeting. And I sat down with the prospect, and he immediately jumped into, hey, I bet you want to understand our machine counts and the types of computers we have and all the different stuff that we use. And I said, no, time out, I really don't. I mean, I do, but not right this minute. I actually want to get to know you and your business first. That, to me, is way more interesting and will help me provide a better solution for you guys than just knowing your machine counts, because we can get that at any time. And honestly, any MSP in the space does a pretty good job of doing IT support, because that's kind of the table stakes these days, right? That's the easy part of our job. And so we spent the next half hour, 45 minutes talking about how they made money, the challenges they're running into from a business perspective, their issues with their current MSP, when the MSP contract was over. We really just had a really solid, human to human conversation in which, we learned that their window wasn't open for a couple more months, and we learned that they had some minor business challenges that we could probably solve, and we learned that they had all kinds of issues with SharePoint and email and those other things, and so we knew how we were going to be able to support them effectively. And so when we came to pitch it, it was a whole lot easier that way. So that's what I want to get at today. Those are the questions I want you to be thinking about asking your prospects as you meet with them. I'm not sure if you are like me at all or not, but usually what happens is the first problem I hear someone talk about, my brain goes right into let's solve that problem mode. And that's not really what you need to do in that context. You need to be able to have the conversation, understand the whole scope of what they're hoping to get out of this relationship, and then really move that whole thing forward. And that's what I want to talk about today. It's all about building rapport with your clients, turning that conversation around from being the computer person to being a person who has a business that can help my business move forward. That's the whole idea behind a lot of the sales conversation. So let's get into avenue number 1. Avenue number 1 is all about understanding their business and how it operates. Tell me about your business. How do you operate? What's your day in the life like? What's those kinds of questions. How do you get things done? What processes do you use? How do you make money? What's the best part of your business? Like those kinds of conversations. What you'll find is a couple things will happen. Number 1, oftentimes a prospect will open up and they'll want to talk more about it because we like talking about ourselves. That's just how it is, right? The second thing is that it starts to change their perception of you in their mind from the computer person or the computer company to, hey, this person wants to understand my business. They want to help me overall, not just sell me some computer stuff, right? That's the whole point of kind of building this rapport and having these business conversations. Avenue number 2 is learning about their risks and their risk tolerance. Now, everybody has security-related concerns that we have to deal with, but it's more than just that. One of the first things I want to learn about any prospect is how much does downtime cost them, right? Is it expensive? Do they have real big issues when there's downtime, or is it minimally kind of a pain in the rear more than a holy crap, we're down, right? Think about it this way. If an hour of downtime is going to cost them multiple thousands of dollars or even $1,000, they're probably pretty willing to pay a reasonable amount to keep their business up. Now, on the flip side, if downtime barely impacts them at all, you're not going to get a whole lot of traction in this regard, and that's just an important thing to understand. The second thing is, how does compliance and security and those kinds of things impact them? Do they have to worry about HIPAA or PCI or any of the other compliances that are out there? What's their take on security, right? Are they a security doesn't impact me because no one's going after my size of business, or is security super important, or do they live somewhere in the middle, right? And you're just trying to understand their opinion and their posture around some of these things and understand how open they are to dealing with risk, because all of those things are going to help them hit their risk tolerances and make sure that you're minimizing the things that are really going to cost them money in the long run. You can use this as an opportunity to delve into things like, hey, what was the last time you were down and how did they impact your business? Did you lose any clients? Were clients irritated? Like, you can have a lot of those conversations around what was the impact to your business when this thing happened, right? And you can give them a couple for instances, and oftentimes they're going to open up about the things that they're worried about. You want to help make them feel secure about what's going on. That part of the conversation is really about getting them to share with you about their worries and their issues and the things that they're concerned about. If you're finding value in this video so far, please do me a favor, go ahead and click that like button. Third avenue is getting them to open up about the challenges they have in their business, especially if they're technology-related challenges, because you're ultimately going to come back with a proposal either later in the conversation or later the following couple days or week or whatever that sales process looks like, with solutions to some of their business challenges. So this is where you want to start talking about things like, do you have any current issues that you're running into? What parts of your business processes are holding you back? Do you have users that need support? Do you have users that have computers that stink? Like, talk to them about what's going on. Oftentimes they're going to say, well, the process is a challenge over here because of this reason, and this other person could use some training. This person's been complaining about the computer for weeks, right? You want to understand some of these things ahead of time because it opens up your ability to answer those challenges with your proposal at a later time. Avenue number 4 is asking them about their experience with their current IT provider, whether that's in-house or MSP, or maybe they don't have anybody, right? Whatever that situation is, you want to get to the bottom of kind of why they're talking to you and why you might be able to help them out, right? The idea here is that you want to understand, one, the relationship and some of the challenges that might come up from there, and two, you get to learn their attitudes around technology and a technology provider, because if you remember in my target client profile video, understanding their attitudes around technology is important. This is a really good way for you to kind of get to the bottom of that a little bit, is to understand what they feel like their IT support does well for them, what they don't do well for them, what their attitude is overall as it relates to IT support, because those are important things for you as it relates to your target client profile. Also, if there are challenges with their existing IT provider, you'll find that they often will open up here, especially if you've had a good conversation so far, you've built some rapport with them, they might be on a little bit of a roll, and you say, hey, tell me a little bit about your existing MSP, and they'll get into why they stink and how come they never answer the phone or those kinds of things, right? And you want to just take note of those things, and you're not going to pounce on them, but when you provide your proposal later, you want to be able to say, hey, and I know you have some of these concerns, and this is our process around this, right? You're not trying to customize things for them, but you want to speak to the things that they're concerned or frustrated about. Avenue number 5 is you want to understand their buying window. Oftentimes when we talk to prospects, their buying window isn't open. It might not be open for a few months. And that doesn't really matter in the scheme of things. Yes, you want to sell to them when they're ready to buy, but you really want to understand, do you have 2 months out, or is it 6 months out, is it 9 months out, is it a year out? In many cases, it can be advantageous to you to have that buying window be out just a little bit in front of you, because it gives you the opportunity to really answer some of their questions and show some of the value with some follow-ups and those kinds of things. Now, if their buying window is open right away, awesome, jump right in and go after it. But if the buying window is a few months away, don't worry about it, right? This is your opportunity to follow up, to kind of continue to build that relationship, show them some of the value that you can bring for them, even when you're not at an active client MSP relationship. But those are things that can really be beneficial to kind of continuing to build this rapport. That's a critically important thing. As part of learning about their buying window, you also want to understand who needs to be involved in their buying decision. What does that process look like? Are they going to have an RFP? Are you going to just drop a quote off for them? Like, what does that process look like a little bit? Because you ultimately want to make sure that you are setting yourself up for success when it comes to kind of stepping through that window when it's open. So now you might be wondering, what's next, right? Well, if their buying window is open now or open very soon, this is your opportunity to build your proposal, right? And you want to build your proposal that helps identify the issues that they've expressed to you and how your MSP can uniquely handle their issues, right? Again, you've asked a lot of business-related questions. Solve their business problems with your proposal. This isn't licensed for you to customize a solution for them, because again, your hardware stack and your processes are really important, and that allows your service team to support them efficiently. But you want to be able to explain to them why the normal way of you doing business is going to eventually help them in some projects and some of those other expertises you can lean into along the way. Now, if their buying window isn't open for a little while, maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's a year or something, you want to follow up with them on a relatively regular basis. Now, I think somewhere in that 4 to 6 weeks via email is probably just fine. When you follow up, this isn't an automated thing, right? You want to follow up with, hey, how's it going? When we talked, you mentioned, this being a challenge. I actually read an article the other day about this thing, and I thought of you when I read it, right? Those kinds of follow-ups. Now, if you have a newsletter and you want them to sign up for your newsletter, or they've agreed to sign up for your newsletter, obviously send them that as well. But you want to make sure that when you're following up, you're doing it on a regular cadence or regular-ish cadence, right? It doesn't need to be every 4 weeks on the dot, but every 3 to 6 weeks, somewhere in there. Follow up with some value, something that you can teach them, something that you can wish them well on a thing. Maybe that their company anniversary is coming up in a month, and so 3.5 weeks from now, you send them an anniversary card or something like that, right? There's things like that, ways that you can kind of show that you're there and you care, and that you're bringing them some value along the way is really important, because this whole sales game is really difficult, especially for those of us who aren't traditionally salespeople. You need to be able to lean into that sales hat when you need to, and eventually you hire a salesperson, and maybe you already do. I think it's still worth them kind of having these types of conversations with your prospects more than the traditional, here's our stack, this is our pricing. I mean, like, you're going to get there eventually, but that's not where you start, right? This is some of those initial conversations, because ultimately, when it comes to providing your proposal and kind of walking through that, that's pretty straightforward. I think most MSPs can do that well enough. This is just trying to get to that proposal stage, right? So that's the thought behind today's video. So thank you for coming on this ramble with me, and hope to see you on the next one.